Hey everybody, it's Nate Charles. It's August 21st, 2025, and I'm back with another thought of the day. Today's thought of the day is about viewpoint discrimination. This is a very important and very special topic, so important that I felt it's necessary to cover it twice. I'm going to do this video laying down sort of the bare bones argument for mass consumption, but I'm also going to be publishing a Substack about this with a little more detail and with citations to some of the legal cases and the scholarly works that have been done about viewpoint discrimination. The bottom line is viewpoint discrimination is on the rise. It's definitely on the rise and from the federal government through the Trump administration. There's been several examples of it, notably Donald Trump's efforts to affect the content of the exhibits in the Smithsonian. Other things like kicking out reporters from press briefings just because of the ideas that they spread. The gist of viewpoint discrimination is discrimination based on a person's, not just the content of a person's speech, but on the political position that they take on certain issues. The government is allowed to have a viewpoint, or the government's allowed to have an opinion. It's just that the government is not allowed to take measures to suppress the opinions of others. The First Amendment is really about what we call the marketplace of ideas. It's about the competition of ideas, and the government is not allowed to put their thumb on the scale in the competition between various ideals or various ideas by suppressing one set of ideas over another. And we're seeing a lot of that from the Trump administration. Unfortunately, we're also seeing it state and local governments as well. I think the viewpoint discrimination has played a role in some of the work that I've done as an attorney in Pennsylvania, specifically with regard to the Kimmy Baylor case. It seems that the way that the prosecution of Kimmy Baylor was pursued was meant to advance one particular political viewpoint, specifically MAGA, over liberal democracy that was being promoted by Kimmy Baylor. There's more detail about this in the written Substack, but this is a very important constitutional concept. All right, this is so important that the Supreme Court back in 1995, in a case called Rosenberg v. Rector and Visitors of the University of Virginia, stated when the government targets not subject matter, but particular views taken by speakers on a subject, the violation of the First Amendment is all the more blatant. Viewpoint discrimination is thus an egregious form of content discrimination. So the bottom line is this is one of the more pernicious and more problematic First Amendment violations that can be committed. And if you start to think through this problem out to sort of its logical conclusion, you can start to appreciate why. Viewpoint discrimination is a tool of totalitarianism. The logical sort of extreme of this is 1984, George Orwell's 1984. In Oceania, you have this idea of thought crime. It's where the government has gone so far in suppressing one particular viewpoint over another that it's actually outlawing a viewpoint. We're not quite there yet, but it seems things are moving in that direction. And that's something that we need to be very cognizant of, and it's something that we need to take steps against. All people in society need to be aware of this. They need to understand what they're seeing, and they need to be able to put terms to it so that we can have an intelligent conversation about it and try and come up with solutions for this. Public officials at all levels of government need to be cognizant of this. They need to not engage in it themselves. They need to encourage diversity of thought, and they need to make sure that they are not suppressing one viewpoint over another in the way they do things. But the courts especially, the courts of law especially need to look out for this. They need to be cognizant of viewpoint discrimination, and they need to remember and apply the U.S. Supreme Court case law that holding that viewpoint discrimination is an extremely pernicious First Amendment violation. If you have any more thoughts on this, I'd love to hear from you. If you think that anything I've said is inaccurate, I would love to see evidence of that. If you've got a different point of view, by all means, put it in the comments. Again, there isn't going to be any viewpoint discrimination here. I do think this is an important topic, and by all means, if this is something that interests you, and I hope that it does, please read the Substack so you can be armed with even better information, even better understanding of this very important issue for democracy and for the future of the American Republic. Thank you very much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day.